have ride reports that were better at a different altitude?
JetBlue 723, I've had at least continuous light turbulence, occasional moderate, almost all altitudes today. If you want to try anything, I might recommend trying higher. 2350, go ahead.
Yeah, we're getting some significant bumps here at 320. Request lower available.
3350, I have your question back.
With strong troughing in a 100-knot jet in Nevada and California, they're getting some moderate to severe turbulence here and there. The Santa Ana winds are present, but not a lot of widespread high winds. Just the strongest that I'm seeing is 40 knots at Sandberg. That's in the passes between Palmdale and the San Fernando Valley. Here in Texas, we're ahead of that cold front coming out of the Central Plains, and we've got the low-level jet set up. This is not time-lapse. That's 40-knot flow up there at 850 millibars, bringing the moisture north into the central Mississippi River Valley. So here's what the weather map looks like this afternoon. Very powerful 988 millibar low over northern Wisconsin. That's creating a winter storm in Minnesota. You can see the gusts on the right side of each plot. 41 there at Fargo, close to 40 at Minneapolis, and we're seeing 45 in northern Iowa and just west of Sioux Falls. Also quite a bit of snow coming down and quite a bit of blowing snow also showing up in these reports. So this is the classic location of where we find blizzard conditions, typically in this area of strong pressure gradients on the west side of the surface low. And for our warnings, we want to go straight to the horse's mouth. Blizzard conditions from Grand Island, Nebraska, all the way up towards Duluth and back towards Fargo and south of Pierre, South Dakota. So that's covering quite a wide area there. And out ahead of it, winter weather advisories for Wisconsin and north central Iowa. Out in eastern Colorado, we actually have a air quality advisory for blowing dust. There it is right there. Strong gusty winds causing areas of blowing dust in parts of eastern Colorado. Let's see if we can pick that up on the satellite. Now what you're going to want to watch is this area right here. This is all agricultural land. It's kind of dry. Nothing going on there, but a lot of loose soil. And you can see it being picked up there, carried across Guyman, down into the Amarillo area as the afternoon goes on. And that got transported very far south, so we're going to pick that up on the Texas satellite animation. We see that dust entering from the northern counties, and at the very end, it's located from about Lubbock towards Vernon. And that's going to be opaque enough to blot out much of the sun. We can also see some mountain wave activity there in New Mexico with this very dynamic weather system. This is due to the strong westerly flow across the Rockies. And if I run this animation, you can see that standing wave develop there. It's a cloud formation that does not go anywhere. And that's due to a very stable position of a segment of the upper level winds that is rising. And that's being caused by flow over these mountains to the west. And we can also catch the cold front right through this area. Watch the line of cumulus coming together. That's from just north of Texarkana down through the Tyler and Austin area. And while we're at it, why don't we take a look at that winter storm coming together on the water vapor imagery. This is going to be from last night about midnight, and the features we're going to watch for: the surface low, where we see the maximum curl right there, and the cold front. This is the front plunging southward. And we're going to also see the moisture and another feature we're going to watch for is the appearance of a dry sector. That's a dry punch that's going to be behind all of the strong upper dynamics, and it represents dry air in the mid and upper levels. So running that forward through the overnight hours into this morning, there's our winter storm coming together. And you'll notice how the cloud material up north does not appear to move very much. That's the deformation zone up near the comma head of this system. And that's typically indeed where we see a lot of the heavier snow. You'll also notice that these cloud elements do not move very much, and that's because the counterclockwise circulation on the backside opposes the forward motion of the system as a whole. So it appears to just sit there. And to a certain extent, that can prolong the duration of the precipitation, and that's what contributes to the very heavy snowfall totals back in that part of the storm. And the precipitation is only shut off when the dry air advecting in the low levels builds in through the mid levels, and we also see the main dynamics moving on off towards the east. And that does gradually shut the precipitation down. The stuff out to the east, that tends to be a little bit more convective, and it also tends to be a little bit warmer since that's in the warm advection region. And we return to the map to talk about weather elsewhere around the country. Further to the west, we have the ridging coming down across the high plains. That's pushing all the way into Texas and Oklahoma and Missouri. Not as much cold air down there, just 40s and 50s. And then we go further west and we catch the actual Pacific high out there. That's a 1038 millibar high, nosing into the northern deserts of Nevada, setting up that very strong pressure gradient between the Great Basin region and the coast. And that pressure gradient along that axis helps define the Santa Ana winds. Now we've got kind of a weak to moderate event taking place right now. However, this is still the kind of pattern you would look for. Not only the pressure gradient, but the presence of strong northeast winds out in the deserts. Then out in the eastern U.S., we've got warm air advection. We're displacing quite a bit of cold air in the northeastern U.S., so temperatures are slow to recover. But down to the south, there's some evidence of a weak warm front in Georgia, dividing these 50s from these mid-60s and 70s along the coast. And then just a quick check up in Canada. We've got to do that during the wintertime. We've finally broken up that intense Arctic high. Remember, last Friday we had minus 53 in this region here. Now we've got above zeros nosing in. And right around the Dawson, Yukon area, it's coming up near freezing. So this is definitely a warm-up, and we're just bringing very warm Pacific air inland across the western parts of Canada. However, quite a bit of Arctic air still in place in the high Arctic. There's the minus 30s right around the town of Resolute, and then surrounding that, a lot of minus 20s all the way down to Manitoba. And I do pick up another minus 30 reading right there in southern or southwest Nunavut. Okay, so have we covered everything? Not quite. Has anybody guessed what that is? Well, I'll give you a hint. Warm air advection pattern ahead of the surface front, and that means moisture is flowing north. We can see 60s dew points in Louisiana and even down in Texas. So let me outline those 60s. And also 65 from Houston over towards Baton Rouge. Now that's very important because even in late December we can have severe weather in much of the Deep South. We're coming up on the 5th anniversary of the Rowlett tornado. That was in East Dallas. I'm going to include some links at the very end of the video, so if you want to check those out, you can do that just after the credits. And that goes to show that April and May are not necessarily the peak tornado season. And just to drive that home, here's an animation of tornado probability. You can see in the springtime, yeah, the Great Plains are active, but then as fall sets in, the Gulf Coast and the Deep South become the hot spot. And in terms of hail probabilities, this time of year, yeah, there's a little enhancement in southwestern Arkansas, northeast Texas, and northern Louisiana. And we'll just jump right to the cheat sheet. There it is, an SPC slight risk for Louisiana, coastal Mississippi, and Alabama. And then for tomorrow, we're looking for an enhanced risk and a slight risk in the Carolinas and the Norfolk area of Virginia. Now, a quick way to size things up is to go to the Severe Weather tab here on Pivotal Weather and click on Surface-Based CAPE. So starting out, we don't see much instability anywhere, but as that moisture flows northward, you can see some of those capes come up. Yeah, briefly there in Arkansas, very low values. And then we wait for tomorrow's diurnal effects to set in. There's 0Z. And yeah, just kind of a very slight enhancement in coastal North and South Carolina. So let's look at the situation around midday around Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There's the forecast skew-t. You can see that, yeah, there is some fairly significant moisture there, but a big problem is that there's not very much cold air aloft, and that's going to limit the capes. You can see the cape values there, not all that impressive. Now, we don't need a whole lot of cape to get tornadoes. If we have a highly sheared environment, that can be enough. I do see, yeah, there's some strong 0 through 1 kilometer shear on that photograph there, and a little bit of curvature. So the SRHs are up in the 200 range. So yeah, that puts you up into the marginal categories. So from there, it comes down to what are the storm modes. Now this time of year, we tend to get a lot of squall lines. When you have a lot of cell competition, big squall line rolling through an area, it can be very difficult, especially with weaker instability, to develop a rotating storm. And I think that could be what we're looking at for tomorrow. Let me just take a quick look at the precipitation forecast. Yeah, that's a big, messy squall line. So it is going to be tricky to get rotating storms. Now, you definitely can't rule it out. All you need is the so-called localized accident, where everything just quickly comes together in a certain area. And the ingredients are definitely there for that, but just looking at things right now, it looks like the instability is a little bit on the weak side. And let me look at the discussion here. Yeah, weak lapse rates and very limited potential for any heating will hinder cape development. Intense veering flow with height spreading across the area, favorable shear. So yeah, this kind of suggests we can't rule things out, and they're mentioning quasi-linear convective system type tornadoes along the leading edge. Very brief transient tornadoes may be possible. I wouldn't worry a whole lot about that, but in a highly sheared environment, that kind of thing can happen. Okay, and what everybody is wondering about is what are we expecting on Christmas Eve and on Christmas? So we'll just go ahead and use the GFS. We'll bring this up to tomorrow evening. So the big system in the Great Lakes moves into Ontario, and down to the south, the warm air advection region, and the deeper precipitable waters, the higher precipitable waters, and deeper moisture, triggering thunderstorms. So by evening, there's how things are looking. We got a frontal wave developing in Virginia. There's the cold front extending down towards Jacksonville, so it looks like kind of a stormy day from Charleston, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, and the warm front extending to the north and then connecting back up into that system in Quebec. So a little bit of freezing rain in the Buffalo area, some snow on the western Appalachian region, and some very cold air coming back in across the Midwest. Elsewhere, it should be pretty nice and very cool in the Rocky Mountain region. And then for Christmas Day, things moving on off into the New England area. Very cold day in the eastern U.S., rapid warm-up across much of the plains, and looks pretty good in the Intermountain region, and weather going downhill on the west coast. And I think that's all that needs to be said. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Festivus holiday, and of course tomorrow, Christmas Eve. And we'll be here tomorrow, but keep in mind that your Patreon support is what guarantees we go the extra mile. And I am planning some tutorials and special features this winter. And some of those are going to be for supporters only, so keep that in mind. All right, take care, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.